Cool.
All right. It was a dark and stormy night when Larry Mendoza called and said, "Hey, I got to tell you what I did for the Satanic Temple today."
And you were like, I gotta go.
So, tell me the tale, sir.
All right, man. So as you uh, are aware, the Satanic Temple has this program called the After School Satan Club, and the point of the program is basically to, it's to kind of get kids, and usually this is in elementary schools, but it's to get kids to kind of have an after school program where they can, come and congregate and do arts and crafts and learn about critical thinking and science, stuff like that. There's no proselytizing. We're not trying to convert kids to like Satanism or anything like that, but it's an opportunity for like-minded folks, secular-minded folks to kind of, have a club. Now, you might ask, well, why the Satan Club? Well, the Satan Club only goes to schools where there's already a a Christian evangelical group called the Good News Club, and
Which are
what
not good news
which are
from
not good news. No, don't
from
let the name
everything
fool
I've
you.
heard. You may
Yeah.
need to fill people in
So the Good
on who
News,
the Good News Club is.
yeah, the Good News Club is an evangelical. Um, uh, there's an organization, and it's sponsored by different churches in different cities. And according to one uh, Christian that gave public comments, and I'll get to that in a minute, but at the school board that I was involved with, she said there's about 5,000 of these clubs across the country. 5,000. So in 5,000 elementary schools, there's this evangelical organization that basically they provide an after school program where they evangelize to kids, and they teach kids also how to evangelize to other kids. In other words, this is a way, for this evangelical organization to get back into the school, um, under the pretense of it being an after school club. Now, mind you, and this is an important part of this, these are not student led groups. These are not like, and I don't know what the rules are in every, you know, uh, area in every school or every school district, but down here in Virginia, at least in the Chesapeake school board area, elementary schools are not, the kids are not allowed to have, or there are no student led clubs in elementary. Now, high school is different. High school, you have a lot of student led clubs. So the Good News Club basically gets into these elementary schools and evangelize to kids. And so that's where the Satanic Temple then says, okay, well, if you're going to rent out or provide a public taxpayer, place to have this evangelical club, well, then we want to have an after school Satan club. And that's where, uh, you know, it sort of the controversy then begins. Now,
I don't think you've given a fair discussion of who the Good News Clubs are, because I tell you, any secular parent would want their children to turn to Satan before dealing with these people.
well, yeah, I mean, they come across as being these, oh, it's, and you'll see here, because I have some clips where some Christians can really, where they define what it is themselves. And it basically, it's an evangelical, it's an evangelical organization. And so they evangelize. That's their job. They try to convert kids. They try to scare kids with hellfire if they don't turn to Jesus.
And this
Essentially,
also includes not just Christian kids, but non-Christian kids. But even in the case of Christian kids, it often turns the kids against their parents because their parents are the wrong denomination or something, or they're just not batshit out of their mind crazy like suddenly their child is.
yeah, yeah, it's their, pretty much a way for them to get to the young kids, because they can't do it legally through an official So they use these like space use rules that many districts have, that they allow nonprofit organizations, churches, and other to use school property under the guise of, this is an after school program. Not, and by the way, not sponsored by the school, not sponsored by, the students themselves. This is an outside organization that knocks on schools' doors and say, hey, can we, set up camp here? After school, we provide, this wonderful blah, 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 which is all bullshit. It's basically, we're trying to convert your kids to Christianity.
And to turn them into argumentative
Yeah.
Zealots who were even turned against their own parents in most cases.
Well, yeah, I'm not too familiar with the inner workings of, I do know that at least in Chesapeake, parents have to, they have to agree to send their kids to any after school program. So, usually the parents are already even, but
if you're a Methodist,
oh yeah,
or something like that, and you think,
they're about Jesus, exactly. Isn't that nice?
And then you let your kids go to that, and now your kids are fundamentalist, fire and brimstone, homophobic, and all of that.
Right, and there's a lot of Christians that are more, I guess you would say, more of the progressive side, sort of like your Episcopalians, some of your more moderate, they might get a surprise when their kids start coming home with a lot of the stuff these evangelical organizations teach. So overall, it's a horrible club with a name that's designed to trick people into thinking, hey, the Good News Club, how bad can that be, right?
Yeah, especially when they label it so badly, because this ain't good news.
Yeah. So it's definitely.
They really ought to switch names with the Satanist Club. I mean.
Well, this is the irony of it all, right? And you will see in a juxtaposition of. So let me. What
you're saying, where the real evil is.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so to kind of backtrack a little bit. So the Satan, the Satan after school, or the after school Satan Club, only target schools where they already have this evangelical organization, and they do this for a couple of reasons. One is to test the system's freedom of religion and clause, right, or freedom of religious state property use for because the Constitution says, well, and the Supreme Court has validated the fact that religious organizations can be on in a public square, whether it's 10 Commandments in a courtroom, whether it is, whatever, a manger scene on a courthouse lawn during Christmas, things like that, and including churches using school properties for after school, with a caveat. The caveat being that if you allow one religious organization, whether it, in this case, Christianity, you cannot discriminate other religions from having the same access. So it's equal access, equal protection under the law. And so that's part of the reason why the Satan Club targets these schools that already have allowed a religion to use school property. So they're saying, well, okay, well, now we want to have one. And that's what's going on across the country right now. And the after school Satan clubs are, if you pay attention to the news, you're going to start seeing a little bit more news about this. Why did the Good News Club go under the radar? Nobody, it's only if you start paying attention to, the evangelical activist movement that about the Good News Club.
Or if you're like myself, if you've been an atheist activist for a lot of years.
Or an atheist activist, yeah.
And then you see this kind of insidious thing going on.
It's very insidious, very. And so, but it doesn't make mainstream news. Nobody knows about it. Just
nobody would think to care the way the news is so biased now.
Yeah,
they would just sell it as, isn't this sweet and nice?
Yeah, exactly. No big deal, right? Well, what puts them in the spotlight, now I don't think they like this very much, but what puts them in the spotlight is when the satanic folks are asking for equal access. Now all of a sudden that makes the news. Why does it make the news? Because it's Satan, and we're out trying to get the kids. It's like, and so of course, also Christians are up in arms about this, and you will see some of the vitriol. And this is just one example in one school board here in Virginia about how these Christians view this idea of freedom of religion, aka Christian privilege only, right? Because what we've been going through, and this has been going on here in Chesapeake, Virginia for about 2 months. The club was approved. Then a letter went out to all the parents of this kids. Hey, come join the after school club. And boom, that set off the firestorm. Next thing you know, school board meeting was full of angry Christians demanding that they ban this club. And so then there was a moratorium on the club. And mind you, the school board in Chesapeake, Virginia, is all 9 of the members are Republican. All 9. It's a very red district. And so then there was a moratorium because of the Christian backlash. And so what ended up happening was there were a couple of other board meetings. And of course, the lawyers got involved with TST. And, they were like, hey, FOIA requests started flying. You can't just, you can't ban, one religion, or it's unconstitutional. It's Supreme Court already decided this. This is settled case law, or is settled constitutional law. And so then what the board decided to do was something a little bit more insidious, which is, okay, you can meet, but because of safety concerns, which, by the way, came from the Christians publicly about, Christians saying, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure this club doesn't happen anymore, blah, blah, blah. That kind of sent a message. And I don't know if you're familiar with the heckler's veto, but that's basically what was happening. So because the Christians were threatening violence, essentially, then the school board said, well, all right, fine, you can meet, but you have to pay $600 for 4 cops to be present during the meeting for security reasons. $600 per meeting for 4 hours for after, off-duty cops. 4 cops. 4.
Now, just make sure I understand that the cops have to attend the Good News Club.
They have to provide security in however way they provide security.
And the reason for this was because the Christians were threatening violence.
Well, they were making threats, and the school board saw that as a way to say, well, okay, fine, you can do it. But this and another thing is that this after school Satan Club can only meet after 6 p.m. or once everybody in the school is done. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of an after school club, because by 6 p.m. elementary kids are at home eating dinner, getting ready for bed. So, and of course, this was not the same treatment the Good News Club had. They could meet right after school with no security, this, that, and the other. Now imagine if a atheist or a Satanist threatened violence against the Good News Club. Do you think that they would impose a $600 fee? No, right? They would, file a police report and go after the people making the threats. So
well, not only that, but the atheist community themselves.
If what now? I'm sorry.
Such a person. If an atheist is threatening violence, that's not something we do. We leave it up to the Christian militias that are, all the right wing extremists with all their damned AR-15s that they're so proud of, all the homosexuals. Those are the ones that are making the threats of violence, not us. We're just the ones getting painted in tar from all of the bad mouthing.
It's projection, right? We get painted as the evildoers, yet they're the ones that are actually perpetrating a lot of evil.
By the sort of people for whom every accusation is a confession.
Right, exactly. So this is all in December. The club was supposed to meet on December 15, I think, and of course that meeting got canceled. So then lawyers got involved. There's big brouhaha. Now all of a sudden there's, the news are picking up. I mean, Fox News, I think, picked up on this. Well, what ended up happening, and for the first time ever, the ACLU got involved. And it was the first time the ACLU got involved as representing the TST. And the ACLU started having discussions with the school district lawyers, and they said basically what they were like, dude, can't do that. So I can't remember if it was in February, I think, when everything sort of got settled, the school board or the school district decided then, okay, fine. They knew that they had no leg to stand on with trying to discriminate and treat us differently. So they ended up allowing the Satan Club to meet for the first time I believe it was February. And they provided security. We didn't, they didn't have to pay a dime. They just went and did it. There were cops there. They were very nice, and they did the club. And they come home, and they went home. And the doors of hell didn't appear. Demons didn't start flying out of the school. The kids went, had fun. They learned, did some crafts. They, and it was great. So
similar sort of thing when I gave testimony at the request of representative or members of the Satanic Temple at the Boise, the Idaho State Capitol in Boise. And the funny thing is, we had cops there. They were providing security, but they found themselves defending us. Yeah. Because there were 40 Satanists in that room, and we were overwhelmed by all of the Christian protesters. Yeah. All singing and different songs at the same time, and chanting and screeching in tongues and all of that kind of crap, all going on at once.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, but so here's then when things got a little bit interesting. About a week after the Satan Club met, there was a bomb threat at the school. And then, and also a targeted death threat to my friend Rose, who is leading was in charge of putting together the after school Satan Club, and targeted. The death threat were directly directed at her. They were directed at the superintendent and a couple of school board members. I can't remember everybody, but also targeted the school. Now, the way the letter was written, it was as if it was, quote unquote, from a Muslim who threatened to blow up the school. And then there were a couple of Quranic verses in this.
The way you say quote unquote, is that kind of like when some Karen calls the cops on something she did and blames a black man?
Well, yeah, it basically, what I mean is when you read the letter, it's like, this did not come from a Muslim. First of all, no Muslim has had any public complaints. They didn't show up at the school board meetings. They weren't sitting there angrily, demanding we haven't heard from any Muslims. If they're against the Satan Club, they have not made any public statements about this whatsoever.
Meanwhile, if you're a Christian and you just got to blame another religious person,
well, think about it. You're killing two birds with one stone here, right? You're demonizing the Muslims and and trying to scare them. So we know it wasn't a Muslim, and there's an active investigation as to and they're trying to find it. Anyways, so because of the death threat, right? And this also happened, I believe, in Pennsylvania. There was a bomb threat, and the superintendent in Pennsylvania, I believe somewhere in Pennsylvania, he actually canceled the after school Satan Club because of the threat for safety reasons. And
they don't do that with the Good News Club.
Right. So fast forward to this past Monday, after all this, I actually went down and gave public comments to the board meeting. And it happened to be the board meeting where they had to make a decision. They had to vote on whether to they had two options. Option A is modify the after school use of the school by nonprofits or non-exempt institutions like churches and Satan Club and all that. And the modification was that everybody is on equal footing now. So any after school organization has to pay a fee, and they have to meet after 6. So this puts the Good News Club now now they have to meet at 6. They can't meet right after school. Or ban all after school use of non-affiliated groups, which would be also, in my opinion, a win, because now that successfully removes, the Good News Club from participating in,
Because the Good News Club is just finding any way possible around the law against teaching creationism or teaching religion in public.
They're finding ways to get in, right?
Yeah.
To still target kids.
And
And
still mislead and deceive them however they must.
Sure, of course. That's essentially Christianity, right? It's all about, converting and getting them when they're young, because they love going after the kids.
Well, they have no choice. Can you imagine trying to tell a 21-year-old that snakes can talk?
Look, you and I both know we both have snakes. They just can't. I try getting them to talk. They just won't.
Oh, by the way, since you brought that up, we need to point out, you have how many snakes?
I have almost 40 snakes around there.
Almost 40.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have that many. So I don't look like a freak. Just let me sit next to you. You
Yeah. Well, I also have venomous snakes, which you do not.
Well, I got one that's technically.
Oh. Well, medically significant venomous snakes,
Yeah. So we'll just get off that and get back to the point of the show.
Well, you're going to be right there with me in no time, man, especially after all these reptile conventions that apparently there's one every weekend in Texas. So anyway. Yeah. So so the interesting thing is, and I shared with you both the news article of the vote, or of the school board meeting this past Monday, which was it was the final one. They decided and they voted. Now, there were about 40 people that came to speak, most of them Christians, right? But there was a good number of us. Some folks from the Satanic Temple or the After School Satan Club, the organizers, could not give public comment on the request of lawyers. So only those of us that are not involved directly with could
A
talk.
similar thing for me when I was speaking in Boise. Members of TST invited me to come speak, but neither I nor they were official representatives of TST.
Right. Well, interestingly, I think there were 2 other board meetings where, this situation was, being addressed. And I think in all the board meetings, including the one Monday, the national director for this After School Satan Club from the Satanic Temple, the official, June Everett, which I believe you met.
Oh yeah, yeah,
June, right?
Yeah, she's quite charming. Go ahead.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's fantastic. Anyways, she was there at the meetings, and she has spoken in the previous meetings, but she could not speak. Neither could Rose, the organizer down in Chesapeake, or the parent who requested the After School Satan Club could speak at the request of the lawyers, because whatever you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and blah blah blah.
Now, so, Everett was the one that she was the one that created the After School.
Yeah. I know she's her title is officially national director for the After. So she travels across the country to help out the groups to get the.
Yeah.
She goes to the board meetings. She speaks. She provides support. So she's fantastic, and she's a very, very lovely and very smart lady, and it's awesome to have an advocate like that to help these groups out.
Yeah.
So but I gave a talk or a public comment, and so did a few others, and I gave you the clip for that. But here's where it's amazing to me, the vitriol and the hate and the lies and the scapegoating and the just bullshit
from a religion that has been taught
from
a religion that has been taught that they are better than everyone else.
Right.
simply for believing impossible nonsense for no good reason, one particular brand thereof, and that therefore they're supposed to hate
Yeah.
everyone else.
Yeah. And especially anybody that calls themselves a Satanist, right? And I mean that, but it's interesting to me, we were compared to Nazis, the KKK, to drug,
Both of which are Christian organizations.
the irony, right?
And in the second case, the KKK made formal public statement that they are strictly Christian creationists.
Yes.
That they
yes.
are not evolutionists. They don't accept
No.
evolution.
Nope, they do not. In other words, Trump's base.
So again, the accusation
Yeah.
is the confession.
Yep, you are 100% correct. And my favorite, we were compared to NAMBLA. You know what NAMBLA is?
Yes, I've heard of NAMBLA. I'm just thinking. I mean, I saw today yet another youth pastor up on charges for molesting children in their
Again.
trust. I mean, boys
Again.
and girls.
Yeah.
Because I used to tell the joke that how do you tell the Protestant clergy apart from the Catholic clergy is by which gender of children they molest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, here's one who's Protestant who's just going both ways.
Yeah. You got bisexuals in every religion, you got gays in every religion, and you have, pedophiles in every religion, right? Religion, it's the old saying.
Well, that may be technically true.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that the way the Satanic Temple deals with bodily autonomy and sexual responsibility and all like that is just far and above.
Oh yeah. No,
what you get from any Christian organization.
What I meant to say was that, it's that old saying, I'm just having a mind fart about who said this, but it's like, good people will do good deeds, evil people will do evil deeds, but for good people to do evil deeds, that takes, religion or
religion. Yeah.
And it's what the religion teaches. So the interesting thing about the Satanic Temple is that it does teach about bodily, your body is inviolable.
I invite anybody listening to this to compare the 7 tenets to the 10 commandments.
Oh yeah.
You will be impressed. The 10 commandments fail by comparison.
Miserably.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Maybe, when you should post a link to the 7 tenets so people can see that, because it is a vast contrast. And when I read the 7 tenets, that's what made me go, well, that's me. So yeah, I'm gonna call myself a Satanist now in the brand of the Satanic Temple, which they also claim is a non-theistic religion. The Satanic Temple, they don't believe in Satan. They don't believe in a real boogeyman that lives, in
it's not a faith-based belief. It's
not.
A set of ethics. Now,
Right.
The American government doesn't define religion the same way I do. If they went by my definition, then the Satanic Temple wouldn't qualify as a religion at all. But the United States doesn't have the kind of classification system that I do. There have been justices.
Well, it's a tax code. That's all it is.
There have been justices on the Supreme Court that have tried to classify secular humanism and some other organization as being religious just because they have a body of ethics. And if having an ethic is all that qualifies as a religion, well, then definitely the Satanic Temple qualifies as. Every other religion, however, I've recognized is a faith-based belief system positing the notion that some supernatural essence of self somehow survives the death of the physical body to continue on in some other form. And the Satanic Temple, and indeed not even the Church of Satan, neither of them necessarily hold to that, though they are both non-theistic, essentially atheist religions, only by the inclusion of ethics. And their ethics, we gotta say, are superior than those of Christianity or Islam.
Absolutely. And I gotta say that the difference between the Satanic Temple and the Church of Satan is that the government does recognize the Satanic Temple as an official religion, whereas the Church of Satan is not recognized under the federal tax code as.
Really? Are they not?
Yeah, correct. They're not recognized officially, but the Satanic Temple is. And the Satanic Temple is the only satanic religion, or, however way you want to call it, that is recognized as an official religion.
I got to say, when I went to when I went to SatanCon last year, I interviewed a number of the people because I wanted to people in house to represent what Satanism is. I learned as a little kid that if you want to know what Buddhists or Mormons or Muslims believe, don't ask a Baptist, right? So
Bingo.
You're right. Ask the Satanists to describe who
Bingo.
they are. And the surprising thing for me was that while I had heard that there was a great deal of animosity between the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple, and I've seen a bit of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at the SatanCon. There was a bunch of COS people.
Yeah.
One of whom that I interviewed was even named LaVey, naturally, part of the LaVey family. And some of the COS people said that they were lifelong Satanists, but that even though they still consider themselves separate from TST, and I know a number of Satanists who do not identify with TST, and
yes,
some,
I know a few
some very admirable people, by the way, and yes, I'm nodding my head toward Boise, Idaho, but they said that they thought that TST was making inroads into activism, social activism that were important, and that one of them said, I'm not going to say that they all said this, but one of the COS people said that the Church of Satan had kind of dropped the ball when they had the opportunity to advocate for their values, right, and for the things worth believing in, that we all collectively believe in, and that TST was attempting to pick that up. And indeed, the reason I joined TST was because I had to respect their attempts at First Amendment defense, because you and I are both associated with the American Atheists as well. Correct. I'm on their board of directors, and they are all about defense of the First Amendment.
100%. As a matter
Against
of fact,
who is the enemy of every single provision of the First Amendment? It's always conservative Christians.
Yep, that's right. And it's funny because, well, not funny, but you're correct. When I introduced myself to the board I introduced myself as the Virginia State Assistant, one of the assistant directors for Virginia State with American Atheists, and also a TST member. And June Everett, she says, "Oh, you're with American Atheists." She goes, "Man, thank you for all the work you guys do." I mean, there really is a partnership there, and I think it's a great one.
As a member of both organizations, and Everett asked me to be on a panel at the upcoming SatanCon.
Awesome.
I am glad to be associated with both organizations.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think they both serve different needs for different people, but I think they're natural allies, and I'm happy to be part of both, and happy to work with both, and happy to work at the same time. As I said, I went down there. It's like I'm here as the assistant director for American Atheists and a TST member, and I made sure they understood that. But and it's interesting, so June was like, "Oh, American Atheists, you guys are great," and which shows the value that again, first, defending separation of church and state, defending the First Amendment against the vitriolic attacks that we're seeing. And here's the interesting thing about that. We are right now at a very dangerous crossroads with democracy and fascism in this country. Fascism stemming from, corporate oligarchy, stemming from Christian fascism or nationalism, stemming from, white nationalism, all sort of joining forces and trying to revise history and trying to, and we've seen after Trump, we really have seen how close to the precipice we are from falling into a really dark place in this country. And interestingly enough, when I saw now there were a couple of Christians that, like maybe 2 or 3, that spoke in defense of allowing based on constitutional rights. There were only like 2 or 3, and I'm pretty sure they do not.
There's not that many, sadly, that understand secularism and its value.
Right, and its
we do have some allies in defending the First Amendment.
Yes. It's
but
not many.
but make no mistake, it is the Christianity embody all of the enemies are
Yeah.
within Christianity.
Oh, yeah,
Not all of
absolutely.
Christianity are the enemy,
But
but
all
all
of the
of the
enemies
enemies
are.
are. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I can't even say that because we have a growing number of Muslims as well, and there
Oh,
are
sure.
some Muslims,
Abrahamic theism.
and they are not for secularism at all.
No.
At all. I mean, you just got to look.
So everything, and the Christians really need to understand this as their religion is in a state of decline, and it's irreversible at this point. But
Yeah.
Islam is still the fastest growing religion on earth. So it is within our foreseeable lifetimes that Islam will eclipse Christianity and
Yeah.
be the dominant faith everywhere except the United States. And then how long is it before they're the dominant faith in the United States? The next 10 minutes after that, perhaps? And so everything that the Christians do to erode our secular values, everything that they do for the faith-based initiatives, they don't understand that that's just making it easier
Mhm.
for the, what do they call it, the Islamification of the United States.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I mean,
They're
this is not
laying
something
down the roadmap.
that dog whistle doesn't work for me so much as it should for Christians.
It's they're opening the doors. They're setting the roadmap. They're making
Yeah.
it very easy for them. Because that's the thing. They feel entitled. They feel privileged that it's only going to be for us, right? Well, the minute the Satanic Temple steps in, all of a sudden they're like, oh, heads exploding because no, we can't have that. It's just, and you heard that in a lot of what these Christians were saying during the public comment meeting with the one Baptist minister by I forget his name, but anyways, Baptist minister in Chesapeake who, went up there and basically admitted to being a Christian nationalist, or as I like to call it, Christian nationalism. That's a soft word. They're fascists. They're Christian fascists. And what he
Because
said,
Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't know what a fascist is.
Oh,
She doesn't know why that's bad. She doesn't. So she identifies as a Christian nationalist because she hasn't learned from history, because she hasn't learned history.
yeah, no, well, clearly or she has, and she really truly believes in that evil. And that's, so.
Well, yeah, that's a distinct possibility too.
Yeah. I mean, you got to wonder, are they that stupid or that evil, or both? But, anyways.
I hesitate to shout evil at some of
Yeah.
these people, though some of them clearly.
I mean, yeah.
I don't want to broad brush everybody, but
Right. Sure. No, but
there
and
are
I'm talking about,
some.
I am
There are
talking
some of the
about
Christian right that are straight up evil.
Yeah. And I'm talking about those folks. For example, this Baptist minister, he said a lot. He said many things, but one of the things that really stuck out, and I'll show you that. I'll send you the timestamp for when he came to speak. He was towards the very end, but he said this. He said that the state needs to stay out of the church, but the church has to be in the state. That's quote unquote.
And when you tell these people that the kind of government you want already exists, why don't you move to Saudi Arabia and experience it?
Yeah, experience it. Yeah,
or
as a minority
to
religion.
Iran. You could just as well move to Iran and experience it there as well.
Yeah, and in my speech that I gave, in my public comment that I gave to the board, I said this, that the very idea of separation of church and state was coined in Virginia by Thomas Jefferson, whose the Virginia Bill of Rights was the blueprint for the U.S. Bill of Rights, especially when it came to separation of church and state. That's where that came from, Virginia, Thomas Jefferson. And I said, and the reason why the founders were so really, wanted this freedom of religion, separation, because they knew what happened. They studied Enlightenment philosophers. They knew, what when religion rules, what happens. And they did not set up a church-state separation in order to, to have, to make sure that atheists, it wasn't against, it was religion. They didn't want one religious sect to overcome or rule over another. So they said, well, we can't have religion and government so that everybody can worship whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, without the government imposing any restrictions or any rules against anybody else's beliefs. That's what that's all about. And that's what I said to the board. I said, you cannot expect, the true freedom of religion is to allow all religions in the public square if that's what you want, but you cannot have Christian privilege over everyone else. But that's exactly when you hear this Christian after Christian after Christian after Christian that came up to speak, that's exactly what they expect. Is Christian privilege only them, no one else. Now imagine how they're going to feel when I go and start the after school Allah club.
What I've noticed working in American Atheists, as as an atheist activist, I mean, we often hear advertisements for faith-based initiatives and for faith-based financing for religious schools and all like that. But then the moment a Muslim school says, "Oh, we want that money," they're initially denied until some idiot Christian is informed that, hey, we said faith-based, we're allowed to do faith-based. And then sometimes there have been instances where they say, yeah, but we meant Christians. And then somebody will tell them to hush up and say, yeah, we know we meant Christians, but the Constitution doesn't allow us to specify that it can only be our religion. If you allow it for one religion, you have to allow it for all of them. And then suddenly somebody wakes up and realizes, hey, aren't we a secular country? We could just say no to everybody. Yeah, that was the fucking point, stupid.
Was the point. Exactly. It's either all or none.
And you know what? None works for everybody.
It's the most equal level playing field you can have, right? And, and that's basically, our argument. But of course, the Christians are like, well, they're just trying to shut down the Good News Club. That's all they're doing. It's political theater. It's blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, okay, well, if it doesn't matter what our intent is. What matters is that when you are challenged to apply the law equally, there's problems. And that's exactly what is being exposed. And some are claiming that we're doing this on purpose. Well, whether we're doing it on purpose or not is irrelevant because it's happening. It's the way they want Christian privilege to be, to supersede the Constitution. And it's just not going to happen. And so, so I was more than happy to go down there and provide support and a voice to this, because I think it's important that people speak out. Otherwise this will go unchallenged. And when it goes unchallenged, guess what's happened? 5,000 of these Good News Clubs across the country. So we're just getting started, and we got a lot of catching up to do, but we need to challenge these people anywhere we go, because otherwise we're going to see ourselves at the doorsteps of fascism. And then people going, how did that happen?
Yeah, I'm going to have to make sure to include a link for anyone who's concerned that how to contact you in Everett or how to set up an after school Satan in their area. It's not likely to happen in my own state because they're suffering from cranial rectal inversion to a large degree.
I like that. That's a good
I wanted to have Satan Con here in Texas. I wanted to have American Atheist National Convention here in Texas. Both organizations refused, saying, as long as that evil, vile criminal Abbott is governor, then Satan, then Texas
is off
is predatory. Yeah, because Texas wants to criminalize transgender people. Texas is just not a comfortable place. So I know people who are fleeing this state, and I have dear friends who will not come back.
Yeah. It's Florida is another one. I mean, look at what DeSantis is doing. He's trying to outdo Abbott. I mean, it's insane. It's just insane. What's happening. But again, this is how it starts to get normalized, and anybody paying half a brain cell of attention,
which they don't do here in Texas. I'm sorry to say.
well, here's the thing. I have a lot of friends in Texas. Besides you, I have my friend Jason Osborne, who is he's the chief innovation officer for one of these school districts over there, and he tells me all the time, guess what I did today? I was like, what's up? Teaching evolution to kids in Texas. I was like, good for you. It's
well, what kind of laws this state has passed, like the Merry Christmas bill that wants to out teachers that aren't Christian.
What?
Yeah. So the Merry Christmas bill is that it allows teachers to wish the students happy Merry Christmas if they're Christian, and if they're not Christian, then they're supposed to praise whatever holiday they do worship, so that non-Christian teachers will be kind of coerced into outing themselves.
Yeah.
If you're atheist, I know a whole lot of teachers who are atheist, but they can't say that.
Yeah.
Because once they reveal that they are atheists, well, then they get objections, not so much from their students, but from the students' parents and also from administrators.
Yeah. Well, when I was lived in Northern Virginia, I was a member of Beltway Atheists, and part of what I was doing was trying to help. This is in high school, student-led secular groups, like free thinkers groups in high school, but student-led with teachers. If they could find a faculty sponsor, but I would come in and I would provide some guidance. And, there was this one school that, these students tried to start a secular club, and they were met with a lot of, roadblocks from the administration. And finally, the administration realized, because also I got a secular student, the SSA involved, and so they sent a letter and say, hey, you can't, you got to let these kids, if they want to start a club, you got to let them, because you allow Christians to start a club, you allow Christian students, so again, equal access, equal, protection under the law. So the administration got around, or tried to stop it by saying, fine, we're going to enact a policy that says any student that wants to start a student group, we have to notify the parents as to the, basically outing the kids to the parents. It's the same thing going on with a lot of anti-trans laws going on. They say, fine, but we're going to out you to, or we're going to, so then the kids said, no. And they stopped, and they had to, because they didn't want to be outed to their parents. So that's a way to shut down things like this.
What is the great fascination here? Let's imagine that, if I'm Christian, and I think I'm better than everyone else anyway, and I'm white, and I think I'm better than everyone else anyway, why would I be threatened by people who are not white or people who are not Christian being anywhere around me? Why would I think? Why would I be threatened if I'm outnumbered? Wouldn't that? I mean, we tend to value most that which is rare as a species, anyway. So I don't understand what the Christian obsession is with putting down everybody that isn't like them, so that everybody is like them.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the idea, it stems from this idea that you have to spread the gospel and you have to convert everybody. And I think that's where it starts. But then it turns into something even more insidious, which is now you're using that idea to then justify your hate and bigotry. And then you're using that then to justify hating and suppressing people that are not you, or that you don't like. I think that's my opinion, but
that's why I just never had a problem, like celebrating diversity. I said something when I was a child that I didn't realize my family was racist at the time, but they were complaining about how there were so relatively few whites compared to we lived in Los Angeles at the time compared to blacks and Mexicans. That was the complaint that I heard. And I remember thinking, well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Because with everybody intermixing, in 2 or 3 generations, we're all going to be a light shade of brown anyway.
Yeah.
And while I'm thinking that's the solution to the problem,
they're just like, what? Like, don't worry about it. It'll fix itself in a few generations. Everybody's gonna be brown.
Yeah, they
And
were
the heads explode, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Young and raw, forward thinking as always.
Well, I said something else similar when somebody mentioned something about overpopulation.
Yeah.
And I said, well, maybe people should just, limit the number of children that they have. And I was the family gathering that I happened to be at. I was like 11 when I said this, and it was like, imagine 10 people or so, 10 adults turning on you as if they just discovered that you're Joseph Mengele.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, good old family.
Here I am advocating for responsibility.
Yeah. How dare you? We must multiply and prosper.
So I was thinking about having this chat with you, and then including some of the testimony that you were talking about, including, of course, your own. But I'm thinking we've been at this almost an hour.
Yeah.
And what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this one to be a standalone discussion.
Okay.
And then I will go back over the things that you sent me and piece them all together, I think. And I think I'm going to upload that separate.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll definitely send, because I sent you the board, like the entire board of supervisor meeting, which, so and the public comment starts about half an hour in. So you have to but I gave you, I have all the timestamps here of both the crazies. Oh, here's a good one. One of the ladies that was there said this. She said, and then these Satanists, they have these rituals with aborted fetuses, and she turns around and looks right at us, and we're just like, what? Yeah, we take dead fetuses and we rub them all over our bodies in an orgy, and like, what do you get? Like, the imagination these people have is just unbelievable. It's like, and then another one of my favorites, and this could be a preview to when you post this one guy comes up there and he gives this little, justification. And then you can see with some of them, they start off very kind of calm, but by the end, they work themselves up, and they were screaming and yelling. And this one guy says, and now I want all Christians to stand by me and rebuke these Satanists in the name of, he starts throwing like he's doing some sort of exorcism in the middle of a school board meeting. And me and my friend Rose, we were sitting there thinking, what we should have done? We should have all just started shaking. I'm like, acting like we were getting like exercise, but yeah, I mean, just unbelievable, the stuff that and I've given talks in front of school boards, but it's never
there's something, since you brought that up, I gotta say, this one of the things I admired about you, and I want to get this on record.
Mm-hmm.
You have been you've been a speaker for a number of education related things, mm-hmm. and for First Amendment defense related things, and activist for atheism. But more than that, you've also been all about education and science. You have given talks for herpetology, not just because you have 40 snakes, but because you've done a lot of herpetological studies. I've seen you give scientific conference presentations. Mm-hmm. And then there was another one that you did. I forget what it was, but didn't you give a presentation like at a hospital did you give a lecture at a university?
I've done everything on I do talks for preschool kids all the way to graduate level, lectures all the way. I even do talks for I think what you're thinking of is I did a couple of talks for I did one talk for a medical student. It was an elective class for medical students and this was an outdoor medicine course, like a wildlife medicine or, course. And I did a whole thing on snakes and snake bites and things like that. But I also did a course through the it was through the fire department, the EMS, and the university here for for EMTs and first responders certification, and it was a course or a lecture on snakes and snake bites, and I did that in collaboration with an awesome doctor down in Florida called Ben Abbo, who is a venomologist. He has his whole he focused on snake bite and venomations and things like that. So he provided a lot of the clinical stuff, and I did a lot of the, more of the recognition and how to recognize venomous snakes and things like that. So I've done a lot of different, from A to Z. I
admire your activism across the board.
Yeah.
Your ability to present not just, for the common good, which you recognize, but also for, advocacy of science and everything. And you're quite adept at what you do. So, kudos. I just wanted to get a public statement to that effect.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah. I enjoy it. It's fun. Plus also, we need, scientific literacy is just dying in this country, and anything I can do that piques an interest in especially in kids or anybody, the general public, and snakes. And usually when you bring snakes to a party, man, it's like you're the most popular kid, right? So, it's a way to reach out to people, because even the people that are afraid of snakes, there's still that curiosity that grabs their attention.
Yeah.
And so, and I do this even because my paying job, I work in laboratory safety, that's what I do. And I do oftentimes safety training in labs for people. And safety training is oftentimes, it's boring. It's like, here's your PPE, you got to wear gloves, goggles, blah, blah. But I try to make it interesting. I always give anecdotal stories about snakes. And when you say snake, all of a sudden everybody perks up. Like, huh? It's like, yeah, I have 40 snakes. I've had cobras. And they're like, what? And I use the examples of me being safe with my snakes in order to give, reach out and provide an example of how that's no different than being safe in a lab with hazardous chemicals or viruses or whatever it is you're working with. It's the same thing. You just got to understand what the risk is and how to mitigate it. So I use a lot of that. So I cross-pollinate a lot of my talks, and I do a lot of that type of stuff. But you say the word snake, it grabs people's attention, whether they're afraid or whether they're curious or what. But because of that innate, there's something about snakes that gets people listening, and even after giving a talk, and I usually ask how many people here are afraid of snakes. Usually I have a few people. Even with those folks, by the end of my talk, and even they actually end up coming up and touching the snake for the first time. And to me, that's like,
and then they say, I thought it was supposed to be slimy.
Bingo. You know how many times I've heard that? And I'm sitting there thinking, what did this even come from? When I look at a snake, the last thing I think is slimy, even if I see it on TV. It's like, where did the slimy come from? Anyways, but
all right. Well, Larry, thank you very much for this conversation.
Absolutely.
I maybe I should have spliced all of this together, but I appreciated all the information that you brought forth.
Yeah.
And so I think this is going to have to be, because how long we talked, I think it's going to have to be in the form of 2 different videos.
That's fine.
But I very much appreciate your activism for education and for First Amendment rights.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I always enjoy chatting about this stuff. So it's good times.